is the Speaker's Pulse, a show where we have meaningful conversations. We talk about issues on leadership, communication, and today we are talking about a topic very familiar to pretty much all of us, and that is procrastination. But before that, we've had an opportunity to address a few other topics, ranging from communication to leadership, and beyond that. And we talked about a few other things, including human behavior and so much more. But today we come back again to talk about procrastination. This is the Speaker's Pulse, and my name is Joshua Tahinduka. I will be your show tonight, just like always. Like I mentioned, many of us are not new when it comes to the field of procrastination. In fact, I believe that anyone that says that they've never procrastinated before, there you have it. Your first liar in life, right? All of us surely have had our fair share of procrastination. And this has had its own effect. And all of us can look back down memory lane and say, I could have had a different result had I not procrastinated. And I believe that we all want to be better in life. We all want to set excellent goals, achieve them, and advance in life. As a matter of fact, that's the biggest source of desire, I believe, that beneath each person's heart, there is a desire to do well, to be great, to achieve all the goals that you set. Good example is every start of the year, when we all have our resolutions for the year. But statistics say that by the 21st of January, almost 50% of us have actually given up and have had conversations like, oh, maybe it's too soon, or maybe I will think about it, maybe I will do it, or there's a bit of time, it's only a few days into the month. And eventually, that leads us into a bad place where we don't achieve the goals that we have actually set for ourselves. What do we do so that we do not procrastinate, or we reduce our chances of procrastinate? But before, maybe we need to know, are there some real life implications, negative effects of procrastination? Are there some things that we actually can do to avoid or reduce or stop procrastination? Or maybe a friend of mine also recently told me that all of us procrastinate, but it's actually a difference of priority. How do we get some of those that matter and shift them into, how do you increase most of the valuable items into the priority space so that we actually procrastinate less on them and do generally better? Well, if you are one of those, you're wondering, having those questions at the back of your mind, look no further. I'm glad to say that you are in good company. With us tonight, we have two amazing friends, great professionals that will be sharing with us a few things that they've done in their lives, or maybe out of their own experience, what we can do to do better. To begin with is a familiar face, Dalton Grothoff. She is a courageous coach, and she is also the director of Stand Tall. We are so delighted to have you, Dalton. Will you just say hello, and then we'll go ahead?
Of course. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thanks, Joshua, for having me again. Looking forward to talk about procrastination today. It's such a great topic, and we struggle all with it, as you said. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Dalton. It's such a wonderful thing to have you once again. You are such a loyal friend to the Speaker's Pulse, and every time we call on you, you always show up. So thank you so much. Again, my friends, we have another gentleman that is breaking ground on our show tonight. He's our great friend to all people that love development. I have personally got to know him, and he feels like a brother from another mother already. There is that connection that is already set. But this brother hails all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. Job Mateshi. I hope I said it well, Job. I have a track record of butchering names, and I really don't want, I would love to have your name out of those that I butcher. But Job is a managing director of Africa Entrepreneurs Collective in Kenya, and his experience spans in all over, from international development. But the one thing that is actually to entrepreneurship to and companies, but one thing that is common is he has a personal mission to develop leaders, and what quality to have as a leader developer, but also as a leader yourself, than a way to reduce procrastination. But we'll get into that. Job, do you want to say hello and tell us a bit about yourself, since you're coming for the first time to meet our wonderful audience? Job?
Thank you so much, Joshua. And yeah, you didn't really butcher the second name. It's Matseshe. You almost got it right. Like you say, I'm the managing director for Africa Entrepreneur Collective Kenya. I am a people developer by choice. I like working with people and just making sure that within the day-to-day working with people, you are able to touch their lives in a positive way. And that's one of the reasons I felt really the need to come and speak about procrastination. Just like you've mentioned, it's something that we all do it every day, but the ability to beat it makes you stand out. And just to be able to share our experiences, my experiences in how I've been able to really put procrastination so much on the back seat is the reason why I'm here. I have a great background in a lot of international development, working in the nonprofit sector within different sectors. Right now, I'm an entrepreneur, but previously I've also worked in public health, youth livelihoods, conflict, and a lot of youth engagement activities. So really looking forward to sharing the experience and the learnings I've had over the years. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Job. Now, I want to agree with my audience tonight that the people that we have here, I mean, ranging from Doughton, who helps professionals achieve their goals. I personally have had several conversations with you, Doughton, and how to actually achieve my goals. And you've been a part of that journey, encouraging me and motivating me to achieve that. Job, your experience says a lot. And my audience and I can agree with you on this one thing, that you'd have not got where you are by procrastinating. And therefore, you surely know one or two things on how we can deal with procrastination. But before we get into the depth of it, some of my mentees, when I shared this flyer, they said, how would you call what is procrastination? When people talk about procrastination, they use it for all senses, from in all ways. But I want to ask you, how do you define procrastination? And I'm going to ask you, Dalton, to go first, because this is your field. This is the area that it's one of the. If you are the proverbial doctor, then this is the disease that you treat. Dalton.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think the most simple way to put it is procrastination is the behavior of where you avoid the task that you actually want to do, have to do, and then you don't do it, you do something else. So the avoidance of what you should be doing. And favoring either it can be something else, like cleaning a whole house, or scrolling through social media, or maybe working on something that is also useful but less important. It's really that task. Procrastination is about that task that you should be doing and you're not doing it. So I think everybody has those moments and situations indeed.
All right.
So that would be my simple definition.
Yes, thank you so much. Job, do you have something or two to add on that?
I think the thing that add is the conscious choice, that you are consciously making a decision to do something else instead of something that you should be doing. That's the added addition I'd put to doubts and definition. I totally agree with her. I know I'm supposed to do this, but I want to do this instead. It's choosing something that you like doing over something that maybe you consider boring or unpleasant. That's how I put it. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And all of us have had our own fair share of procrastinating. There's a lot that we would say everyone would look into their life and say, you know what, I definitely could have done better. I definitely could have used this time on improving this or attaining this goal. I just wonder again, why do we procrastinate? What could be the cause of procrastination, right? Everyone has had this fair share, like I mentioned, of procrastination. But why is it that no one can say, I am actually free from procrastination and I never procrastinate? Huh? Dalton, do you also want to go first and then Job?
Sure. Yeah, there can be many reasons. So why? There's not one answer to it, and probably most people can also relate to a variety of ways that you can procrastinate and a variety of reasons. You know which people procrastinate a lot? It's people who are perfectionistic. So when you're a perfectionist or you make the goals or the standards for the work that you need to do very, very high, it brings a certain stress and pressure along that makes you really dread the task. You know, you already feel those emotions coming, even thinking about what you have to do or what you want to do, because you make it so, the standard so high, you make it so difficult. So perfectionism can be a reason. Another reason can be that you don't really know why you're doing it. I don't know exactly if it is a quote or just a way of saying things, but so often people think that they lack motivation, but they actually lack clarity. When you don't know exactly what it is that you need to do or why it is important to do it, you start feeling like, oh, I don't feel like it. Why do I need to do this? And when it is tasks that are given to you and you have to do it and you don't see the relation to how this contributes to maybe your team or to your company strategy or to your own life, it becomes harder to motivate yourself for it. But it's actually not about the motivation itself, it's about lacking the clarity. And I recognize that part a lot for myself. Sometimes when have to do work where I'm not exactly sure how to do it, for example, it takes me longer to get going. And then it's sometimes it's procrastination, and sometimes I feel like I should be writing now on this thing, but I decide to call someone to brainstorm. How would you do this? Or to try and find some methods or frameworks, or how could I approach it? And that kind of clarity then really helps me going. There are many more reasons, but before I talk too long, I thought let me just bring up those two. I'm sure Job will have many others as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I definitely identify with the clarity part. Job, could there be other, in your opinion, other causes, other reasons why people procrastinate?
Yes, definitely. So just to use my own experience, the times I realized I procrastinated a lot was the times I was afraid of failure. What do I mean by this? Is I see a task, I totally understand what needs to be done, but I am not 100% sure whether the task I'm going to do is going to, say, appease my boss, or it's going to be actually really a success. So the fact that I'm afraid to fail makes it like, oh, let me do it later when I've had more time to think about it. And sometimes, and most of the time actually, this is the task that I need to do so that I have the most impact in what I'm doing. And that sort of pressure that I put on myself makes it one of the reasons why one would procrastinate. And I'm sure most of the listeners here would also have relate to some of that.
Mm,
Sometimes also negative feedback, just fearing negative feedback makes you actually sort of try and start thinking about what else would I do? And as you are thinking about that, this is time lost. This is you procrastinating actually, and this time lost will never be found. So that's also some of the reasons why people fear, why people procrastinate. The other reason, before I just put a pause there, would be actually the other two reasons would be to do a lot about low confidence or low self-esteem. You have a task, and because you have low confidence, and just like Dodson said, the lack of clarity really comes in with the confidence. You're not so sure about if this task, if you do it, would give you the results you're looking for, and then that makes you sort of want to procrastinate or eventually actually procrastinate the task that is ahead of you. Just pulling in a little bit from my psychological background, as human beings, we want to be rewarded immediately. So for instance, if I was to ask the panel right here, between $1 million US versus a company that is making, say, 100,000 US yearly, what would be your choice? I think for most of us would want to go for the $1 million US because that's an instant reward. We don't want to work for it. And that's the same when it comes to procrastination. We tend to want to do tasks that give us immediate reward compared to tasks that the reward is not so much certain, or the reward is coming in the future. And so, for instance, you would do tasks that are easier to do, sign a document and push it forward, but might not necessarily have the most effect about thinking about it strategically. And that's also one of the reasons why I find people procrastinating. Let me pause there and also just get a feel from you, Joshua and Dowdson, about the same.
Thank you so much for bringing out the element of low self-esteem, and I look at lack of clarity, low self-esteem, the fear for failure, all that in one bracket. And I can't find a good name to call that, but I feel like it's so much related to each other. And when someone is not clear about what the expectation is, they will keep in that area of limbo. And I believe, and I'm glad that all of us here, the three of us, are leaders, and therefore have a significant role, and we lead other people into the game, depending on on where you're called to serve. There is maybe people that are working directly to you, and I put this to you, Job. How can the people that our managers, our leaders, contribute towards this procrastination? Because many times, let me speak for the rest of us who report to you. We are often um, faulted for not delivering on time, for being showing low professionalism, and when actually we could be suffering from maybe something that you're responsible for. But yeah, can we speak? Can we pin you on behalf of all the MDs, managers, and leaders? Can you accept to be a sacrifice?
Uh, um, that's an interesting view when you twist it such that it's a result of leaders making sure that the people that we work with, the people that we manage, sort of develop some sort of procrastination. And I think it all comes down back to how do we communicate as leaders? How do we manage the teams that we have? Are we clear in the instructions we give? Are we leading from the front? Or are we the ones who give directions and sit back and watch? Or do we also value how individual team members are prioritizing their work, or do we value our work over their work? So I realize I'm giving you more questions than answers, but yes, we have elements within leadership that actually propagates team members getting into the trap of procrastination. So for instance, you give a team member a task to do that simply because you are the manager, the team members prioritizes these tasks over the task they're supposed to do. And that in itself is procrastination by the team member, but for you, you're actually making sure that the team member is working on it. But yes, it's something that can be contributed by leaders, I agree, but it's also something that leaders need to be really cognizant and recognize that they are contributing to their team members in contributing to the team members procrastinating the tasks that they have. So I believe clear communication from leaders, that is clear, that the set targets, the set requirements that you are asking for the team members needs to be set, so that it avoids a team member actually looking at that task that we've given them as the main task, compared to also the priorities that they have within the given KPIs, for instance, or OKRs.
Well, thank you so much for standing in the gap for the leaders and making sure that it's we're going to do business different. Dalton, you have been led, you also have led, and now you come from an ego's perspective on on organizations, and you support organizations achieve their missions, you support individuals achieve their goals. Could there be a place to say, let's not blame it on the team? There's also when we, as leadership, we might contribute towards this faltering.
So I've also been in the space of team building and of employee engagement. And that is also related to often the desire of directors, leaders, CEOs to get more productivity from people. And, you know, when you do all kinds of fun activities and people have a good time together, it's usually very, very nice. And it can really help the relationships. But what people also really want to feel is, where am I relevant? How do I contribute to what we're trying to do? And so I'm not meaning to talk about my work too much, but why we do the way we do things is to give people clarity. We help them draw a map of their whole work ecosystem and how things relate to each other, and how the vision then translates back to how I contribute as an employee. So that kind of clarity to see, and also to be able to then point out what are the barriers to my success, where are opportunities, and how are we all starting to use the same language and achieving it. That kind of clarity gives ownership, gives a sense of belonging, and that usually helps. But what I think what is also something that I talk about with leaders, and also something that I've learned myself, when you put very kind of how do you say it? Like performance goals for people, like you have to, this year I want you to grow your sales by 10%. So that is pretty clear. So the clarity you have, but usually it can also free someone. How am I going to do that? If you put it in a development way, so for example, find 3 ways to grow your sales. That puts you in a bit more explorative mindset, and now you can start to explore, find avenues, try things out, and it becomes a bit more free and a bit less constrictive, and psychology-wise, it seems to have an effect on people to talk more in the development goals than in performance criteria. And then there can still be performance criteria later on, but that maybe reduces a bit of the of that barrier, or the high standards, or the performance avoidance, or the fear of failure. And did you know that sometimes even people can have a fear of success? It's also something that I learned. I don't know if you've heard of that. There's fear of failure, there's also fear of success, and there's also fear of mediocrity. So, and I think I've had the last one a lot, where I then thought, oh, if I do something, I want to stand out. I want to do it better than average. And that can also then again be a barrier, because you feel stressed. But the fear of success, what that sometimes means for people is that if they feel that if I'm going to be successful now, I have to be even more successful next time, or I have to constantly live up to that expectation or up to that standard. So those kind of things can really play a role in people's minds. I got a little bit off topic here, Joshua, but it led me in this direction. And yeah, let me hand it back to you here, and you make some soup out of it again.
I still think it's relevant because you introduced us to a new concept. Again, we are still talking about the causes of procrastination, and this element of fear of success for me is quite new. But I would definitely get more time to explore to that if time allows. And our wonderful audience, in case you're just joining in, this is the Speaker's Pulse, and tonight we're talking about how do we beat procrastination, because as we just talked about, there are some causes of procrastination, and shortly we're going to talk more about the dangers of procrastination, because it's important to know what is at stake, because we need to come from a strong point of cognition, of understanding of what could be at stake if you constantly procrastinate, and then find solutions to that. Again, if you're joining for the first time, please feel free to subscribe on our wonderful platform, and also leave a comment in the chat and tell us what you think about procrastination. Our own friend Ashil already sent a comment in and said that I think procrastination happens a lot when you are not committed enough to the task that you want to achieve. That is when you postpone it to every day and keep everything that maybe thinking that maybe you'll do it next time or do we do it later. I believe that that's something that we've talked more about. We've talked extensively here with our wonderful panel. Now, my friends, I just wanted us to talk more about the dangers of procrastination. What is at stake, really? When we keep on procrastinating, and hoping it will be done tomorrow, what could be at stake? And I'm going to begin with you, Job.
There's so much at stake. First and foremost, the fact that you're procrastinating is actually you're making a danger of making poor decisions. And we procrastinate simply because sometimes you are running away from something you should be doing. And if it's something that you should be doing and you're not doing it, that's ideally a poor decision you're making, which has a ripple effect to what's happening within with your immediate future and within the later future. Most of the time, procrastination leads to pain or sometimes not meeting the goals that you have. So you have a plan and you take a long time to implement that plan, or you at all sometimes don't do it. And sometimes it leads you to not making sure that you are meeting the goals that you've put in place. And then it makes you rub the wrong shoulders with your managers or your leaders or even your relatives and friends. Because procrastination is not just within a professional setup, it also applies within your personal setup. So not just meeting your goals is also another danger that you might bound to find yourself in for procrastination. You lose a lot of precious time by actually opting to do the things you like or the most over the things that you should be doing. Because eventually you need to still come back and do these things. So procrastinating and not doing them at the time that you're supposed to do, you lose quite a lot of time to it. Before I pass it to Dawson or back to you, Joshua, the other danger I see in procrastination, specifically around young professionals, is the damage to reputation. There are set guidelines that we are looking at. There are set expectations that we would expect of a professional, but not being able to meet these guidelines or deadlines of the tasks that we give you has a really bad reputation, creates a bad reputation. As a leader, I know if I go to Joshua, I'd get the work done compared to say if I go to Job, for instance. I know I have to follow up with him to get that work done. And it doesn't really build your character as an individual. So trying to avoid procrastination would really make sure that you avoid some of these dangers. And like we talked about, the low self-esteem angle, the more you procrastinate, the highly likely you're building yourself into becoming a very low self-esteem kind of individuals. Let me pause there and also pass over to Dawson to also give our inputs.
Yeah, Thank you so much for that. Dalton?
Yeah, I agree fully with you, Job, with all the points you mentioned. And I also wanted to highlight that procrastination and low self-esteem and even depression and anxiety, it's very much related. So it's such a negative cycle when you already feel bad about yourself and then you end up not doing what you know you should be doing. And you can feel really bad about yourself when you procrastinate. And if that becomes a habit, it really brings you down. So it's in that sense a pretty tricky thing. And I also think that even though then for today you can think, well, I'll do it tomorrow. It's only a day. I'll do it tomorrow. But all these things combined, when that becomes a bit of a pattern, it is really affecting you if you look at the longer term. So sometimes there's people who procrastinate and then you have a deadline and you still get it done, and maybe even with good quality. So those kind of things perhaps are manageable, even though that's also very stressful. But really the plans that you have for your life, the things you want to build that you don't do, that is, I think, where it can make really a big difference if you constantly postpone them, because so many people I also talk to who then end up maybe in their 40s, 50s somewhere, and they still haven't done that thing that they always wanted to do. And I think even if it's small steps, even if it's a little bit every day, it makes such a big difference on a longer term. So yeah, it's the effects. I agree with you, Job. Your goals, your career progression, the way that people view you, the way that you feel about yourself, the effects are big.
Yeah, I guess we just talked about immediate effects, but they could be second level or third level effects to missing opportunities in life. We talk about Job. You talked about, and both of you have talked about reputation, and that's a grave mistake. And I mean, we've had people say, I missed my flights. I did this, and all this goes beyond just the goal setting and just the thing that you didn't do, but to money, right? And that can also cost. And let's talk about organization impacts on the organization. It could also be lots and lots of money. Job, you an organization leader, and you know how much when people don't deliver on time, that can actually cost an organization in terms of the current revenues, but also future revenues, because the organizational picture, right, is also tarnished, and there's so much we can do, and as a nation, I imagine if all of us were individual were to procrastinate on most important things, doing your job better, and that eventually would have a compound effect to very low GDP, poor relationships, sicknesses, because some of the things could also be on your health if you're procrastinating to do maybe your morning exercise, like I have been doing. And I'm definitely not pointing a finger at any of you people. It definitely, all the fingers are pointing at myself. Like it could have a serious impact on your health. And the thing about some of these things is it looks like the things that we keep watching, when you're looking at it on face value, it doesn't seem to have an impact on your life, but over time, it has a big impact on your life. And you will say, making it a habit, for example, to postpone things. 5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, could become a lifestyle, could become a part of you, and it's a bad and negative thing to have. And there's a friend of mine recently who was telling me, he's an older friend of mine. I look up to him as a mentor in many ways. That he told me, do not start something that you're not going to stop. He says it has its own impacts, but to your mind, he's a great scholar of the mind. He said, to your mind, it makes it normal. It makes it acceptable. for you to do things and not finish them. And that still applies to the spirit of procrastination. So thank you both of you for making it clear to us what is at stake. And I hope our audience can also have something to say about it. Let me quickly read a few comments and then we'll go along with the conversation. I have a few comments that are coming in from, yes, Junior Adadi, thank you so much. I see Guevara, thank you so much for being here. And Adadi just goes on to say, at times procrastination happens on my end when I haven't efficiently estimated the time I am supposed to use on a certain task. When you haven't efficiently planned, you tend to assume that you will use less time or you will do it later. And that comes into something that Dalton has always told me about. Put a time frame on something and then achieve it. It helps you to achieve your goal better. So thank you so much, Junior Adadi, for agreeing with my good friends here. And then you also have Patrick. Patrick Rusimbi is such a wonderful follower of the conversation. Patrick, we have definitely missed you. I think you've not been here for the last two conversations. It's so wonderful to have you, my good brother Patrick. Now, Songa goes on to say that I have experienced. Oh, I did ask earlier on if people have experienced the three types of fear that we talked about: the fear for success, the fear of failure, and the fear for mediocrity. And then we had Ashil say that I've experienced the fear of failure that kept me behind too much. But I'm wondering, is there any time where it becomes necessary to procrastinate, or can procrastination be important? What a wonderful question from Ashil. I'm just going to put it to you both, my friends, whoever is ready to give a positive spin to procrastination. And good luck to you both, because I think this is a very hard one. You might need some.
I'd be happy to have a go. Shall I have a go at it?
Let's go. Go ahead.
Yeah. Procrastination can indeed also turn into a signal or into a question. If there's something that you're constantly procrastinating on, you could ask yourself, do I really not want this? Am I not clear on what this is giving me in my life, in my career, in my growth? Should I let this go and make up space for something else? The procrastination also happens when you do not feel inspired. And feeling inspired is to be in spirit, to be as close to who you really are as you possibly can. And also probably, hopefully, the moments of inspiration where you just cannot stop working. You forget to eat, you forget to use the bathroom, you just go on because you're just so inspired, you're really in it. And so it's also interesting to look at procrastination from that angle. Where am I missing the inspiration in this? And it can also invite you to think about, how can I make this more fun? How can I make it more inspiring? Or should I really let it go? There's another angle that, from the coaching perspective, I also sometimes explore with people, because we have different personalities within ourselves, interestingly. So maybe you also recognize, part of me really wants to do this, wants to do it, wants to do it successfully, wants to do it great. Part of me doesn't want to do it at all. I want to watch Netflix. I want to meet with my friends, so it's like there's this inner conflict. And often the part of you that doesn't want it is also trying to protect you from something. It comes from a place of wanting the best for you, but it is a limited perspective. So it can be interesting to look at it from that perspective. What does that part want for me? Is it like Job mentioned earlier, the instant gratification? Am I in need of some endorphins to make me feel good? Or is there a different reason? So it can also be really an inquiry, an invitation to get you to know yourself better, if you have the courage to look at that and to look it in the eye. So it's an invitation as well, to see how can I make life more inspiring, Or yeah, what is it that I'm trying to protect myself from? And sometimes when you then realize, okay, it is the fear of failure, like Job realized, like you mentioned, for me, sometimes the lack of clarity, then I know by having asked myself that question, I have to find more clarity. Or if it is a fear of failure, is this real, you know? And what is the worst thing that could happen? And can I negotiate internally to say, okay, you know what? I understand that fear of failure because nobody wants to fail, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. Let's just make a start. And that kind of inner communication can really bring you a long way. So that's my hopefully big positive spin.
So you did so much justice to it because I really was trying to find a good thing about it, but I totally learned that could be a signal for you to maybe stop. It's been a high speed drive and maybe stop and say, where is the problem? What could be the reason? Job, do you have another example?
A positive spin to procrastination. Christopher Parker, one of the books I was reading, said procrastination is like a credit card. It's a lot of fun until you get the bill. And just hearing Dodson talk about the spin, how procrastination could actually be positive. I look at it actually, so from the psychological perspective, is a little bit more about self-awareness. Are you procrastinating because you are learning that this is a boring and an unpleasant task? What is it telling you about yourself? So for me, it's about how do you use procrastination to learn about yourself? It's a learning point about the tasks. Is it something that you know how to do? Is it something that you need to learn how to do? Do you know it? The clarity still comes back again. But if you ask me if procrastination is positive, I'll tell you no. But the ability for you to realize that you are procrastinating, that you are putting off a specific task for long and asking yourself, what are you learning about this particular task is what is important. So to be able to do that, I think is the biggest learning curve that you need to be, that's the twist that you should be able to do to be able to see how procrastination can be twisted to become a sort of a positive to help you learn yourself and awareness and grow.
There is always a silver lining on every cloud that you see. And clearly, our panelists tonight have tried to be realistic and be sensible about procrastination, which is definitely painted as an evil everywhere that you go. Of course, do we believe that procrastination is generally is good on face value? Definitely no. But surely it could tell us something about what is about ourselves, about what is not going right, maybe what you're not getting clearly, as we've talked about the lack of clarity. That could also be maybe a point where you say, why am I not actually doing it just like the rest? Maybe I need to pause here and go and seek for more clarity. So thank you so much, Job and Dalton, for painting that picture for us. Now, my friends, it's at that time where we share some important nuggets from our own experiences. What do you think we can do to reduce or even stop procrastination, especially when we have very important tasks? We did talk about what is at stake, and we want to be responsible people. We want to take part in reducing the risks that come with procrastination. Job, do you have a few tips that you could share with us? Maybe we begin with you, and then Dalton will come later on.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I think I have tips that are span across not a specific format that I want to go about. I think 4 or 5 years back, I was reading Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. And Eat That Frog talks about procrastination and how do you get the job done in the quickest possible time possible. And one of the first nuggets he shares about procrastination, and he talks about Mark Twain saying that if the only task in a day you're supposed to do is to eat a frog, and would have achieved the task, then it requires that you face that frog, you eat the biggest, ugliest frog first, and you will have actually achieved. And that goes to even the tasks that we do. So as a young professional, or as a leader and a professional, one of the things to beat procrastination is identifying the most important task that has the biggest value, the biggest goal that you are able to achieve, and doing it. To be able to concentrate single-mindedly on your most important task is one of the biggest tidbits I'd give as ways to ensure that you are not procrastinating on the tasks that you are doing. And I can speak a lot into that, but I also want to share the other small bits and pieces of how I've been able to beat procrastination, or how I'm able to beat procrastination at the moment. It's something that's quite difficult, but also it's something that is doable. I think to recognize that you're procrastinating is also important. To know that you are filling your day with low priority tasks. You are starting a high priority task and then thinking, oh, let me go and make coffee. Waiting for the right mood, for instance, or waiting for the right time to get that task. I think it's super important for you to be self-aware that you are procrastinating, and that's the ability to be self-aware that you're procrastinating enables you to actually stop that habit and start getting the job done. And you should also, like just we've mentioned, that that identify that you're procrastinating, identify that you're doing something different instead of what you ought to be doing. I use the Eisenhower urgent important quadrant to plan and prioritize, which I think is super important for anyone to be able to do the things that are prioritized, the things that are important and urgent, the things that are important and not very urgent. I try and make sure that I stay on those ones so that I don't do the things that are not important and urgent at the same time. And this has really helped me and my team be able to do what needs to be done at the exact time so that we have the biggest impact possible within the shortest time. And that technique is easy to learn. You just, every single day, in the morning and in the evening, just go back to what you do and start prioritizing. The way our tasks are is that you do not have a specific set of tasks that would end, that they constantly are piled up upon you. So it is very important for you to be able to know how do you prioritize, how do you get that list done as soon as possible so that you are able to do it. For young leaders, and this is different for different people, personally, I believe when you write it down on paper, you are highly likely going to do it. So I encourage everyone to try and write it down. Write down, prioritize, and tick off that list. There's the endorphins that come to you when you achieve some of these tasks, when you look at your to-do list and you've done all the things that need to be done. And most importantly, when they are the most important, that gives you the biggest value. I'll pause there so that we could also get more insights from both you and Dotson.
Thank you so much, Job. Dalton, do you have some of the tips that the people on this call are very lucky to learn from you that they would otherwise be paying for?
I hope so. I have a few, perhaps. One of them is to make a promise to someone. So if there's something you have to do, that you say, I'll get it to you by 11 a.m. or by 1 p.m. or somewhere nearby. So that accountability, and that it's not only you that you have to account to, but somebody else. It's often harder to disappoint somebody else than yourself, in the short term at least. So that could be a tip. Another one is that really helps me, especially with bigger tasks where I am not yet exactly sure how I'm going through the whole thing. I set a timer for 20 minutes. And I just promised myself I'm just gonna do 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes. I can, otherwise you can spend the whole day doing other things. While usually those 20 minutes get you going. And at least then there's a start. And then the 20 minutes usually go pretty fast. And then sometimes you think, okay, I think I can handle another 20. And before you know it, you have a few sections of productivity, and that can at least get you going. And if you that also helps you to break it up again. So I agree with Job. If you first know at least what's most important and urgent, so you're focusing on the right thing, so let's assume that you're doing that, then to get going and to not procrastinate, break it up in smaller time frames. So these 20 minutes or 25, whatever works for you, and make a start. And that's what you need to do. Another one that is pretty famous that I use for some things myself as well, not for everything, but I don't know if you guys have heard of Mel Robbins. She has the 5-second rule. She at some point found herself depressed, broke, in her 40s, lying on the floor, I think of, or in her bed, and not having left her bedroom for I don't know how many days. And there were so many things that she needed to do to get out of her mess, and she just could not start. And then she came up with this plan, like within 5 seconds, I'm just going to get out of bed. And this to her was a key to almost everything, because apparently there's this very short time span that you get a thought of, let me do this. And then after 5 seconds, these hesitations can kick in. And these can be very strong. These parts within ourselves that want something different, they start to argument, they start to give reasons why you don't have to do it today. So if you want to beat that, count down from 5 to 1, that's what she says. And by 1, you've started. You've opened your laptop and you start, and you just cut all the inner dialogue of why you shouldn't. Same with going for a run, or same with getting out of bed, people who struggle to get out of bed on time, and for these kind of small things I use it. I don't have any trouble getting out of bed, but if it would be an activity that I don't really feel like, that is not very important, I count down from 5 to 0 and I start. And it's like, oh, I beat myself. It gives a bit of a kick, and then it's not that bad anymore. So that's I may have a few more, but I don't want to talk too long. Joshua, you may also have a tip.
Well, I actually didn't come with any tip. I was hoping to learn from all of you. And boy, did I learn so much from you. And thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I could simply summarize the top 6 that you've learned from our wonderful panelists tonight. Prioritize, make sure your goals are clear. Be authentic with yourself when things are not going right. I'll accept that you're procrastinating, and then from there, do something about it. And Joby mentioned that write them down, and then tick off the things that you've done, and allow yourself to have the feel-good hormones of achieving the most, especially when they are the most important things of the day. And then Dalton said accountability. Tell someone, promise someone that you're going to deliver this thing to them, and that will hold you accountable, and you make sure that you deliver. Because, by the way, they will come asking for it, and the shame that you don't have it will surely drive you to do it, because we all don't want to be ashamed at the end of the day. But of course, you want to be appreciated for having accomplished the promise. And the other thing that Dalton said is, at least start from somewhere. Start. Just allow yourself to start. It could be the first 20 minutes. It could be, and this is also in line with the 5-second rule that allows you to just start. And the moment you've started, you see, it's actually not that bad. I could actually continue. I could eventually, and I've seen myself do things that I didn't want to do and eventually get lost into them because I found them much more interesting than I thought. That fear to fail, and all of a sudden you feel you understand what you need to do, and coupled with, of course, other things that the 5 elements we talked about, eventually you find yourself beating procrastination. I did ask all of you, our wonderful viewers, to tell us a few of things that if you found this conversation to be helpful. And Ashil, as ever, Ashil, we cannot thank you. You take the prize of the night. The best of the night has been you, Ashil, your conversation. You've been there on time, and then you've been very interactive, and I want to thank you so much. And you say that this was very helpful. I knew that procrastination was a hindrance to my success, but I thought maybe it will go away by time. You say, now I know how to stop it, setting priorities, and even found out that I might help me in my self-evaluation. So if I had no one else say anything, Ashil has just summarized this for us. I want to thank you so much. But of course, not to forget any of you friends that were here to share with us your time and also your comments. People like Adadi, Patrick, Ganza, I also saw you. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. We wish you had all the time in the world to keep talking more about procrastination and how to solve the challenges that come with it. But that's about it. That's all we had for the night. I want to thank you so much. Some of you actually were able to subscribe. Thank you so much for that. Some of you are able to hit a thumbs up to appreciate what the work we're doing. Thank you so much. Again, if you're new at the speakers first, it will be in the best of interest for you and myself and the rest of the people at the speakers first to hit the subscribe button to always get notifications and the most recent information so that you're always with us, so that you don't miss out on the crucial conversation that we have on this call. Again, to you, Dalton and Job, thank you so much for making it a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your insight, your wisdom. This, what we've shared, some people could pay for that. And if you've definitely given off your life, off your time to come and share your knowledge, your wisdom with each one of us. Most of us here are young professionals, and we definitely cannot thank you enough, because what you've done to us, you've given us a big head start in our life, and surely we believe that it will make our lives better. To those of you again that would like to keep here, leave a comment. We'd like to know, do you have some topics that you want us to address here? Do you have any questions about the conversations that we have? Do you have a guest that you want us to invite? Leave a comment in our comment section, and then we will definitely get back to you or invite that person and address the topic for you. You have been wonderful. You have been great, and tonight will not have been the same without you. Until we meet again, my name is Joshua Tahinduka, and this is the Speaker's Pulse.